The sign dictatorship might be ending. Good afternoon, everybody. We have a fascinating story today about signs and HOAs. And I'll tell you what, during July, I saw just a ton of articles about HOAs enforcing signs. You can only, some places you can only have the American sign. Sometimes some places you can only have, you can have armed services flags too. Flags and signs. But they have to be a certain size and they can only be out during a certain time of the year. And it's just generally unwieldy. It's a little bit much. And so today we have this article out of the Denver Post. It says Colorado HOAs losing power to restrict speech on flags and signs. It says a new law takes effect in September that gives Colorado residents more say in what's in their yard. And they have a little picture here of a woman, a family that had an American flag on the side of their house, and the HOA said that they needed to take it down. And then they protested that by putting a large sign that criticized the HOA in their front yard. And then they were sued by the HOA, and the lawsuit was dismissed. So it's kind of interesting. This law is going to do a few things. You will be able to have a sign in Colorado with any message on it at any time of the year. The HOA is still going to be able to restrict the size of the sign, the location of the sign, and the number of signs. So, in the article it says, those in favor of the bill said that it might open the floodgates for signs and flags that may be considered offensive, but necessary for free speech, which I agree with. Those not in favor of the bill were concerned about restrictions, the limits to the limits of the HOAs, which they consider private entities. So, I don't go for the not in favor of the bill. I'm totally okay with HOAs. They do a lot of good things. Don't get me wrong. It's just when they get out of hand, when they pass certain rules for one group and not for another, or where they have selective enforcement of the rules, or when the rules don't make any sense as a certain point in time. So one of the hot topics now is the HOA should be or shouldn't be allowed to control if you get solar panels on your roof. Some people say, that some people say that's terrible. Some people think it's great that the HOA can do that. I don't know if we're going to be in a situation where the HOAs, I don't know if we're going to get a situation where it changes, because so many of the newer communities built in the United States have HOAs that are part of the communities. I don't think you're going to be able to get rid of them. I think the only way to affect change on the HOA, other than going to the meetings and being vocal, is to come at it from the state level or the municipal level. They're normally over the HOAs. Because some of these things are just ridiculous. So, in this situation, is this the best way forward? What about this is right, and what about it is wrong? So, should the law have included more, more openness? Should there be some sort of can you fly a certain size of the sign? The location of the sign, it never really bothered me, but the number of signs. So maybe, during the school board, maybe you support 2 or 3 people on the board. Can you put, you're not allowed, the HOA can still restrict that. And then you get in the definition of a sign. But anyway, I see that signs are in terms of free speech. So you should be able to have a sign in your yard, okay? That being said, signs can be tacky, and I can see why an HOA would want to preserve a neighborhood style. I see this from the perspective of a real estate agent. So when I go to certain communities in St. Louis, and especially now I don't have a place at the lake, but down at the Ozarks, there's places where you can't put up real estate signs to advertise the house for sale. So I understand why some people wouldn't want signs out. It's totally fine. But it gets really weird when you have one group that can have a sign and one group that can't have a sign, or when you selectively enforce it. The worst outcome at all would be that you could have that one group could have a sign and the other group not have a sign, and that's quite different than, having a sign that you disagree with, because it's important. It's important if you feel like a sign is a part of your identity or something like that, you should be able to put out the sign, and you shouldn't be forcing other people to put away a sign that you don't agree with. It's just that simple to me. We have to fight over everything these days. And I feel like I'm relatively late to the sign debate. I don't remember a lot of signs in my neighborhood when I was a kid. There would be signs for like school boards and some political office, but there's nothing like it is today. We would never have had a sign in the yard for a president and then have other people say that that's not the right sign to have in your yard, and protest and all kinds of things. There's all kinds of other signs that people put in their yards now that it's just like, I can't believe you'd want to put something like that in your yard. But those people have a internal desire to do so, that it's important to them. Whereas I see a sign in your yard, I don't care. I don't care what you put in your yard. If you think putting a sign in your yard's, important, fine, go for it. It doesn't change my opinion on anything. There's signs now for children starting school, children graduating school, any nature of political sign. And I don't identify with the sign that goes in my yard. So if I have a sign in my yard, I don't need a sign. Let me put it this way. I don't need a sign in the yard for people to know who I am or know what I'm about. And I don't want to signal this because it's probably a poor representation of my beliefs. So I could put out a sign and you could think of all sort of things about me, but they're probably not true. Or they're probably not exactly the way you think they are, and we're not going to have an informed discussion about it. And so why am I putting the sign out there in the first place? That's me. But other people may feel like that they're helping a cause, or they're doing something good for the world. And if that's what they think, so be it. On the HOA front, I don't know when signs got out of hand. I don't know when signs went crazy, but I can understand where an HOA would want to keep this ability or power to keep the signs down. But again, I think it's a situation where the HOA is behind in the times. People feel like the best way to engage is to put up a sign in their yard, so put a sign in the yard. But that's what they say. That's the way it is. And finally, I can already see cracks in the law. You'll now have HOAs restrict the size of the signs in some neighborhoods to the size of a postage stamp. What happens when people use their windows to display a sign? I think it's going to come down to a definition of a sign at that point. And really, that's just it. It seems like if you do anything outside in your yard, somebody's going to be upset about it. And it's unfortunate. I understand it. But at the same time, it just gets to be a little excessive. So, quick recap. I think it's good for Colorado and the citizens that they can now put out a sign without being harassed by the HOA. I think it's bad that there's not more recognition of this at the HOA level. So these rules in the HOA should be able to be changed by the people within the HOAs. So I think that is an issue. But they didn't respond. There are clearly people that wanted change, and it didn't happen at the HOA level, so they moved up. I'm all for people putting signs in their yards if they want to, and I can understand people who want to live places where they don't want HOAs. or don't want HOAs and don't want signs, and they want their HOAs to enforce them. I can understand that. So these are the things that I think about on the HOA. So I'm glad. I bet you have an opinion on what I had to say. Put it in the comments below. If you like my channel, go ahead and click the subscribe button. This is what we talk about every day: neighbors, bad real estating, development, things of that nature. We'll talk about what you should do as a buyer or a seller, or just kind of read articles about that kind of stuff, and that's what we do. So I'd love for you to be a part of the community. So click subscribe, and that's all I have for today. I will catch you on the next one.